Good morning, Matt.
Rick, good morning.
Welcome to the Alloy Personal Training Business Podcast.
Yes, sir. You ready to go today?
Yeah, I want to talk about business. How about that?
You're jumping in. All right, business.
Yeah, specifically, let's talk about the personal training business.
Do you know anything about that?
I do not.
Good 30 years.
Are you going to help me? I'm going to ask you questions today. Rapid fire.
Oof. Wow, what's going on?
Yeah, you're like, yeah. Don't go there, Matt. Okay. Everything with Matt turns into a movie reference or a joke. So you just got to watch where you go.
So do you?
No. I'm trying to keep this thing on the rails. Matt's a little immature, but I'm here to help him. So thank you guys. Thanks to the listeners. We're going to do the state of affairs in the industry because we did this during COVID and right after COVID, at least from where we sat. And then now it's like, okay.
Probably around a year, quite honestly, since we did it.
It is. So what's the current state of affairs? Like how have things, how have they materialized thus far locally for us? What do we see in the industry overall? Because we still work with a lot of clubs through our licensing. What does franchising look like? And that'll be our lens. We'll just talk shop and give our current state of affairs based on our view of what's going on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go. You ready?
Well, let's start with local. So obviously you're a owner now in the mothership gym here. How are things looking?
The last 3 months have started to turn the corner. I think what was vaccines? They were kind of February, March.
Yep.
Once we got past that first batch, we slowly started getting people back for 4 members, and now it's starting to get a good influx of new people every month, which is exciting. May, June, July have all been great, which historically, like those months actually sometimes can suck, especially July.
Yeah.
So it's been a really great sign. People are getting back out there. Still talk to people coming in like, they're still scared. You'll still have some of those that are just, the new Delta and
Lambda
and Lambda.
I feel like I'm a Greek life. Yeah. Lambda, Delta, Delta.
It's bad. I didn't even know about it until I talked to somebody and then I talked to you and they're like, yeah, they're talking about COVID. I was like, oh.
For all the listeners.
Very
Matt,
bad.
to spare his mental health, has been avoiding the news. So he comes into my office a couple weeks ago and he goes, yeah, so I just... what is this? What is Delta? What is that? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I just had someone.
I thought it was a mosquito.
Reached out. What is this? Why are you not coming in because of the Delta Airlines? I don't understand. Are you mad? But he came to me and said, what is this Delta thing? I've had a client said, I'm not coming in because of Delta. And I was like, oh, it's the new variant that the media is talking about. He's
in my defense, I have 3 little girls under the age of 10, so there isn't a whole lot of news time.
Well, and to be honest, like to your credit, avoiding the news is probably the best thing you can do for your mental health.
It's like going on Facebook, you usually feel worse after you look at it, right?
That's true. Yeah, totally true. Like I was on Facebook this morning to do a business thing, and then I got sucked down into this Simone Biles conversation, and I was even more confused after I left.
This morning, weren't you?
No, I wasn't riled up. I just didn't know what to think about it. I'm like, is it mental health? Is it an injury? Is it a team sport? Is it an individual thing? Is she brave? Is she quitting? I'm like, I don't even know. And I think it's okay to have no opinion sometimes, about something. And I mean, that's a rare trait in today's world, is to say like, I don't really know how I feel because I don't have all the information.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, nope, it's this way. That's the way it is. If you don't believe the way I do, you're crazy. So, but locally, you're right. To try to stay on track as best as possible.
Go off the rails today, guys.
Yeah, it's a little weird day, but the local gyms, same thing with the gym in Suwanee, same thing with Summerfield, right? And so these are the gyms that are up and running and kind of have been up and running through COVID, and we're breaking records left and right. So, and so much so that there's the financials, which is the part of the franchise documents, so called the Item 19, looked really good. So we were able to pull the numbers from the facilities and feature those just to show like the quick growth overall. And, of course that's happening locally. And then if we want to speak more globally, we're seeing the same thing. And so examples would be like bigger brands that we still work with through licensing. I say bigger brands, but bigger, different business.
Sure. Yeah.
Like a large gym, essentially, right? So like low cost model, or like a $35 a month gym, or a $10 a month gym. Like what are they doing? And they're all seeing the same kind of growth. Now, interestingly, obviously, when we're working with those facilities in the past, like what we're trying to do for them is help them build and sell coaching, right? And there's different layers of that, just like we used to do here. There's class-based stuff like team, what we call team.
Right.
There's small group personal training, which is what our franchise specializes in now. And then there's one-on-one training. And for most of the big clubs, we're like small group training in that setting is just too confusing. Like people can't do it because the consumer doesn't understand it there. It's like, it's weird in a big gym, right? Even finding the space to train 4 to 6 people when you're not in a studio setting can be a bit of a strain. So it's always like, look, just do classes, which is do team.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the C word around here because we don't do it, right? But it's like, okay, in those settings, it's appropriate.
Right.
So do classes and then just sell one-on-one training, because that way there's going to be no confusing. As you remember, if you have a class-based setting that has a very low attendance, it's hard to differentiate that between
right.
a small group personal training setting that you're trying to charge a different rate for that has the same number of people in it, right? And so sometimes it's just head counters. Honestly, that's the biggest difference. But those guys, they're seeing memberships come back. Some of them are in pre-sales and are doing amazing. But what's interesting is the thing that we do well with them is teach them how to sell and service either classes or personal training. All of them are seeing low engagement for classes and really high engagement for personal training, which is great. It's, again, good news for us as a brand. We're seeing it as a personal training brand. We're seeing major growth, right? And I think the large gyms, again, are seeing the same thing in a different way, which means as they're selling additional services in a general pop membership gym, they're selling mostly personal training. Yeah. And they're servicing it in one-on-one, but whatever. I mean, I'm just saying as it speaks to what's relevant coming out of COVID, people are realizing they need more accountability, more coaching. I don't know if it's still fear-based to get in big groups and small spaces. I don't think it's as much that, because if you look at those brands in the boutique space that do classes, they're coming back pretty strong as well.
Probably some of those. I mean, a lot of it is just people been laying around for a year.
Well, exactly. And so a lot of people, I think what personal training speaks to are people that maybe weren't active all throughout COVID, right? I think there was some percentage, it was like 50% of people gained weight, and the average weight gain was 29 pounds for the people that gained weight. Yeah,
for real?
Yeah, exactly. I read that stat this morning. And so, you know, if half the people in the country gained weight, and of the ones that gained weight, the average weight gain was 30 pounds, there's a whole lot of people out there who weren't the customer archetype for these boutique class-based concepts anyway, which are people that already like to work out and they just cherry pick the one that they like best, you know, flavor of the month, right? We've talked about the churn rate and stuff. So these are people that are like, look, I need to get my shit together. I need to get control of my health. What are you going to do? Join a class-based thing? Or are you going to go and find somebody who's going to hold you accountable, build you a plan of attack, tell you what to do, how to eat, should you get rest, what should I be doing, right? I have an injury, how do I work around that? That speaks much, you know, stronger to personal training than it does to one-size-fits-all class-based concepts, right? And so I think we're seeing it in the large clubs, and then we're certainly seeing it in our brand as well. And listen, we knew there was a gap in the market anyway, pre-COVID, but coming out of it, it's like even more relevant. And we've talked to a lot of people in the industry, and of course, you know, circumstances sometimes make you look really dumb or really smart. And so for us, it's like, wow, what a perfect concept coming out of this. Great job. I'm like, well, I didn't know there was a pandemic coming, but thank you very much. You know, we'll take it.
You know, we talked about this the last week, how we came upon our model and why we did it. You know, it was best for the customer and all that stuff. And I was actually, you know, just talking to two new members earlier this week and giving them a tour and giving them the breakdown of this place because it's really cool, right? You know, 30 years, we have 8,000 square feet, all this stuff. And I was like, you know, we settled on a small group, best thing for you. And I actually had a client that was sitting there listening. And this morning she's like, hey, you know, you're right. This is the best at all. I've been here for 12 years. This is the best version of it. I'm like, hell yeah.
Right. Well, exactly. Yeah. And of course, if you're listening in and you're an alloy candidate, the thing you should hear is been here 12 years, right?
Yeah.
Our claim is 36-month stay for a customer, but we've got folks that have been here. I think our longest standing is before we opened. So almost 30 years is Eleni Martini. So shout out to her.
Yeah.
And her husband, Paul.
Right? And Paul. Yeah.
Yeah. They've been here for almost, you know, or damn near 30 years now. How crazy is that?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
You're pretty old, man.
Now, this is what I'm talking about. This is what we deal with. Like, I bring out a major positive about a client, and you know how it comes out? Damn, you're old. Like, it's like, that's it. That's what Matt hears there. I hear, like, what a great business model. Personal training is sticky. You know, people should be hearing this. And he's just sitting there in the back of his mind. He's got a little dude on his shoulder who's just like, damn, that fucker's old.
I got to take my shots when I can get them, man. It's wide open.
You just lay it up there. You're going to hit it, right? So we're seeing personal training be the boutique service and the service within a larger club, which is kind of the same customer avatar if you think about it, right? People that can afford training can afford training. And so people are looking for accountability, looking for specificity, and that's what they're buying, whether it's in a one-on-one setting in a large club, or certainly if you're looking to get into franchising, man, like this is it. Couple that with all the folks that we know from licensing and that we've coached in our mentoring groups and everything else that are in the boutique space as an independent owner have all dropped team and pivoted to personal training because it's the most relevant thing coming off of COVID. So, you know, it's great. We're seeing we're seeing big numbers locally. We're hearing about big numbers through licensing. Obviously, franchising, we've got the metrics. Those look really good. And then we're hearing from our large clubs that they're having trouble selling group or classes, that they're doing a lot better with personal training. So you tell me, right, like where we should be headed. It's like, all right, the evidence speaks for itself, which I'm really pleased about that. And then I think lastly, just to wrap up, because there's not a whole lot other than that, right? Like business is coming back. Is brick and mortar ever coming back was the big question. And there were people just basically saying, no, it's never coming back. It's all digital now. You've got Peloton and all these other groups. It's like, okay, well, look at what's happened since the veil's been lifted. It's like, just like we knew before. I mean, Peloton's been around since 2012, so it's not like it was a new concept, right? They just like were poised to be in the right position at the right time. Right. Their stock's been up and down. With the news of a vaccine would drop their stock value, right? So it's like digital's here to stay, 100%. Yeah, I mean, but guess what? Brick and mortar's here to stay as well.
The ability to work out of your home has always been there. So I mean, let's be honest, it takes a kind of specific type of person to be able to do that consistently in the long run.
Well, so, and I'm sure she doesn't mind if I tell this, but I've got a franchise candidate that we're working with now. We've just talked to a couple of times, but we're not quite ready to roll in her state just yet. She came down to visit last week. Nice lady, if you're listening, shout out to you. And her husband's a cool guy too. And so he's the one that first asked, because it was like dead on pandemic times, right? And he's like, listen, is brick and mortar fitness coming back? And I was like, well, I don't know. Why do you ask? Just curious. And he's like, well, like I'm sitting in my office right now working from home, and I've got a Peloton bike sitting right beside my desk. I'm like, all right. I'm like, well, how is that working out for you? And he had just purchased it. He's like, well, I like it. It's pretty good. He's like, well, I'm like, so let me get this straight. Like your long-term plan is to sit at your desk all day. And then for your me time, right, to get out of your own headspace and to do things that are not only good for you physically, but also good for you mentally, is to take 2 steps to your right and then sit down again and pedal for an hour, to then maybe make it down to the kitchen for a quick snack, to get back to sit down right next to that same bike and work all day. That's your idea of like health and wellness? And there's like a pause, and he's like, yeah, you're right. So this was right during the pandemic. Well, she was in town for a different event with a buddy of hers last week, and they just stopped by to meet us and say hello, because they work at a Alloy licensed gym and have for years, and are considering doing a franchise. And I'm like, so how's the hubby enjoying that Peloton? She's like, yeah, he never rides it.
It's full of clothes. There's clothes all over it.
So he's already quit, and her daughter purchased one, and she's also already quit. And she's like, the real deal with them is they're both paying like $40 a month for the subscription. I'm like, well, that's the play, right? How many subscribers do you have? And then you bake the cost of the bike into like, you finance it over time. But just like buying a cell phone, they'll finance that for you, but you have to increase your term. Yeah. The real rub, or the real play is in the subscription.
Peloton subscription for 4 years.
Exactly, because you're paying for the bike for 4 years, right? And so that's how they do it. And again, it's a business model that's been duplicated multiple times. So digital's here to stay, but it was already here before, right? And I think we'll continue as a brand, certainly at Alloy, to look at digital, but only as it can enhance the customer experience.
Yeah, exactly.
The human interaction. Because I think we're not wired that way. Like we haven't evolved yet to, we're not these smooth gray bodies with these giant brains that can like get everything we need digitally or from AI. It's like, that's not who we are. We're still
smooth gray bodies with giant brains.
That's what you have to look forward to. We're a few generations from that.
What utopia are you on?
What are you on? I'm microdosing mushrooms today, so picture this. I'm going to build a brand around that. No, what I'm saying is, we're not evolved enough to not need human interaction just yet. Like we still need that. And just 1 year of a pandemic is not going to change how we're wired. So
God, I hope we never need that. Sounds terrible.
See, this is how easy I can throw Matt off his game. I mentioned one thing that's coming up thousands of years from now, and he's like, what? I need to take a personal day and go home.
I'm out after this.
I'm out.
Yikes.
You get the yips?
Yeah.
You and Simone get the yips?
All right.
You take a personal day?
Stop it.
Take time off. I'm going to drop out and let you guys have it from here. I'm not feeling right about this.
This podcast has gone downhill.
That's right. But the ultimately, you guys, it looks like brick and mortar's back. We're seeing all signs from any type of brand saying, okay, consumers are engaged. If anything, they're more engaged, understanding that health is a priority, that there's only so many things we can control. Some of the early indicators now is maybe even if you're vaccinated, you can still catch the thing and carry it. And I'm like, I don't know where all this is going. all of it, though, speaks to you need to get on top of your own health and wellness, because one thing you can control your own immunity. You can control your weight. You can control your, A1C. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do to mitigate your own risks, and people are recognizing that, and we're seeing it, and they're looking for coaching and accountability and help, and they're coming out, right? And I think it speaks well for our industry overall, and I think it really speaks well for the Alloy brand and where we're headed and our customer avatar and what they're looking to do, to own their own health and wellness. So all good signs, guys, and I'm happy to be able to report that, actually, because I love our industry, and I'd hate to see our smooth gray bodies and large brains get developed earlier than necessary. Right, Matt?
Yeah. Getting weird mental images. All right. Yes.
All right. On that note, you guys, great catching up. That's where we are with the industry. That's what we see. I hope you guys have a great week, and we will talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Peace out, my little lady.